Hi, welcome back to Ride Rescue. In the last episode of the Camaro build, I was just wrapping up the front fender, getting everything cut out and smoothed and ready to weld. So in this episode, we'll weld in these patches, and hopefully by the end of this video, I will have the filler on it and have it ready to start sanding and smoothing it out, ready for primer. If it wasn't for this car being such a great car, I probably would have left this area. It wasn't that bad. It had a large hole here and a couple little holes. It was pretty thin metal. I could have just patched this one little area, but since this is a Rally Sport convertible, I don't imagine this car, anything happening to it soon where it will be scrapped, so might as well do it right. I'll use a rust encapsulator that will seal up all of this rust, and I'll grind these welds down so that I have a good smooth finish, and then I'll start putting on the outer layer. Now that it's all sanded, I'll start out with a good quality rust encapsulator, and then I'll move on to a good quality black semi-gloss. With the patch area cut away, fortunately I'm able to just get a pry bar and lift the area where it had really sunk in from getting hot from the previous weld, and then just kind of bumped it down a little bit around the edges, flatten that out so it's ready to start welding. Once I get the roughed out size of the patch panel, I clean up two edges to make sure they are perfect, and then I can tack weld along those two edges. And then the other two or three edges, in this case, I will leave them just a little bit long, and then I can go back with my cutting wheel and I can cut through both layers, and then I have an exact 1/16 of an inch gap. That 1/16 of an inch gap makes for a perfect butt weld. Now when I go around and grind all these welds down, I won't have the fear of grinding away the weld. If I just weld across the surface, and you've got a tight of the two panels, and when you grind it off, your weld becomes very weak. Or if you've got the gap and you weld across the gap, you'll end up with a little bit of weld actually protruding from the back side. So then you know you've got a really good solid weld. Grind it all down smooth, and no fear of it cracking. These little silver squares are little twist screw clamps that are just under a 1/16 of an inch thick. You can slide right through that gap, and there's a little bar that goes on the back, and then you just tighten it down, and that'll hold the panel in alignment for that butt joint. Once you start welding these joints together, you got to keep moving all over the panel. Try to stay away from getting one area very hot, because then it'll just start warping like the last guy did, where that whole area sunk in. And when you're welded and you start getting some warp, about the only thing you do is to cut the weld, straighten things out, and then go back to it. So as I'm welding and as I'm moving around this panel, if I start seeing any area that's creeping or moving, tap it, get it straight, and just keep moving around. Well, considering how bad this was, it came out really good. And I know now it's done correctly because it's all butt joints. There's still a really bad low spot here. I was struggling to get it to stay up, so I decided to just go ahead. Since it is so low, I don't think it's going to really stretch if I get behind it and start to really push it up. One thing I know now, though, is since the inner brace is about right here, I'll be able to get into the back side of this. Now I need to clean all this up, flip the fender over, straighten this out as much as I can without damaging anything, and then I can start filling this in. high spot right there, but it's just filler. The backside feels really good, so I'll have to grind all this filler out. There's a lot of filler right here, but it looks like it's perfect. I've got a teeny little bit of a low spot right here, but no big deal. It's going to take filler to smoothen out that weld anyway. Well, I'm sure now that I'm going to have to come up higher, so I'm going to have to get this emblem off. These emblems are so fragile. It's glued on there so well. I don't know how I'm going to get it off without breaking it. You can replace these, but I really don't want to have to buy another one. Well, after all that, it wasn't glued on after all. It's just been fastened with a little push pin barrels. So that was good. As I've mentioned in some of my past videos, I really prefer a high quality filler. You spend a little bit more money, but the performance when it comes to spreadability and how quickly it dries, and then how it doesn't have that sticky sheen on the outside to plug up your sandpaper, this really works good. And then when you do start sanding, it sands quickly and smooth. Needs your hardener really well. When it's been sitting a while like this has, it has a tendency to separate. Well, that's good for the first coat. I'll let it cure, and I'll use my straight edge to just get a kind of a judge whether or not I have any major low spots. There could be a little bit of a low spot right here where I'll need a second coat. But like I say, the straight edge will tell the story. And there's no sense in start sanding and then having to go back and do some filler areas. You might as well just do a coat on a low spot before I start sanding. So I just quickly did a light coat right here in the middle where there's a little bit of a low spot, and once this cures, we'll start sanding. This is pretty much tack free. I'll start by just using a small block, and I'll just kind of skim over these high areas, just knock them down, and then I'll use my longboard. You can see on a regular filler, your low cost fillers, this would have just been completely plugged up with sticky. So it pays to spend a little bit more money and get one that's fast drying and tack free, or somewhat tack free. You can see it does start to plug up a little bit when it's this fresh, but a wire brush will clean up your sandpaper. If you have any areas that starts to stick really well, you can just take a screwdriver and knock it off. If you let it build up too much, then it actually will start scratching the filler. So in a big flat area like this, I like to use a longest board and then work in crisscrosses so that you don't get any low spots, or maybe if you just keep working in one area, your pressure on the board, you got a little bit of flex, and you might end up sanding one area more than another. So if you just go on a crisscross, you have a lot more control over a flat area like this. Picking up some height areas that I really can't tap down. I mean, if it was out here in the middle somewhere, I could take the point of my hammer and I could tap those down. But there's really not much I can do along the surface. So as I sand this down, I might have a low spot right in here that I'll have to just put another skim on. Got a little bit of a high spot right here, but it looks like I'm good. So I probably have a low spot right in here. That's just enough that a long board would pick it up. If I was sanding with a smaller board like this, I probably wouldn't notice. It would just sand everything smooth, and then you end up with just a little bit of a low spot, and in most light, that low spot probably wouldn't even show, especially down lower end on a fender like this. But if you get in just the right light and you're walking by the car and you see these waves, that's something that I like to avoid, because I see those in the car shows, and it's disappointing to see a really nice car and then look down the side of it and there's a wave or a dimple or something that somebody left and didn't go back and really make sure that it was perfectly flat. We got a little low spot here, a little low spot here, and then a little bit more of a spot here. Looks like a low spot here as well. Sand this down a little bit more. There's a little high spot here, so if I knock this down, I think I can flatten this out. Yeah, I think I'll put a little filler in right here. Looks like the rest of it will be okay. This is interesting. The original yellow, the bright canary yellow, the blue, the burgundy, and then the yellow again. I didn't expect to see that. Feels like it's dried up enough. I'll do the same again. I'll just go over it real quick with the small board to knock off all the high spots. Has a flat spot here and then a curve here. Still have just a little bit of a low spot right there. teeny little spot right there, a little bit there, and a little bit there. So I'll just hit these three, another coat, and one last sanding should be good. So at this point now I want to concentrate on this body line. There's a high spot right here, and I want to make sure I keep that straight with the bottom so that it doesn't end up with a little one around. And other than this little spot right here, this is looking really good. I want to contour this edge, have that radius, so I'll try to match that best I can. Good. I'll hit this one spot for the skin, and then it's ready for primer. Ready for primer. So what I just mixed up and put in my gun is a high solids primer filler. It's a direct to metal urethane primer. I've used this a lot over the years. It flows really well. It seals and bonds really well as quick and easy sand. It dries fast. So I have everything wiped down, masked off, mixed, poured, I'm ready to shoot. I'm getting a funny reaction I've never seen before. The primer is lifting on something underneath. It's kind of interesting. It's just kind of this wrinkle effect where it's bubbling up something underneath. It almost looks like it's liquefying one of the paint coats, because you can see all the different paint colors over the years this car has been painted, and there's a little bit of a haze outline from where the top coat is as it gets into the other layers. So I'm probably going to have to do a little touch-ups in this area. There's something going on right here. As it's drying and curing, I'm seeing three spots now. There's one here, and one here. A primer that has a guide coat. It's just a sandable primer. And then I'll be able to watch for these areas. It's a little disappointing, but not a disaster. It's very interesting. I've never seen anything like it. Those areas that were bubbling, they just would not dry. They were super sticky. There was definitely something underneath there that liquefied. So I just ended up digging it out with my fingernail. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just sand this area as clean as possible. in hopes that it doesn't happen again. And rather than sanding all this primer off, because all the rest of it is solid, nothing else went wrong, I'm just going to dab this in, just really float in a layer of primer right here, and then when I sand this whole area, these should flatten out. If it doesn't work, then I'll go ahead and sand the whole thing off and reprime it. But for now, I'm just going to try to attack these two problem areas, and then put in a heavy coat of primer just there, and see if that works. So what I did is I decided to go ahead and do this whole area with 80 grit sandpaper, and just make sure the primer is leveling out everywhere, and there's no real drastic low spots or high spots, and it's coming out perfect. Got a little bit of a high spot here, but I'm not concerned with that. This is clear down on the lower end of the fender, and I'm flattening out really well everywhere else, so that's not going to show up. Plus there is a piece of trim that covers right here too. In fact, the trim comes right to the end of that, so this will be well hidden. So I'm not concerned with down here at the bottom, but all the rest of these areas are looking good. I've got a little bit of a low spot here, but this is all still super thick, so I'm confident this will all flatten out. So now, after finishing sanding this a little bit more, I'll dab these areas in real heavy with primer, and then I can use the 80 grit to finish leveling these two areas out after it's dried. Then I'll go over the whole area with 320, and then again with 600, and this is ready to paint. If there's any more areas that are showing up like this, then I'll know I need to give this whole area a coat of heavy primer again. But I'm confident this is going to work out just fine.